And welcome to another beautiful book of this wonderful series called Nothing Like a Good Book. My special guest, you're going to find out in just a moment, the writer is Beth Ann Blackwood. Part love story, part lamentation, part tentative hope, moving forward, looking back. It'll resonate with anyone who has experienced devastating loss. And I guess we all have at one stage or another. Life, love, and loss. 1 year of coping with grief. It's already a top 10 Amazon bestseller in the death, grief, and spirituality section. You know, folks, experts say that it takes a year to adjust to losing a spouse. Many grieving individuals will ask, well, how long will I feel like this? I mean, well, grief, it's not easy or linear, but there is hope at the end of the journey. And that's exactly what Beth Ann Blackwood illustrates in her new book, Moving Forward, Looking Back. In a journal-like fashion, Beth Ann Blackwood reflects on her life for the first year after the death of her husband, Tom, from sharing memories of their marriage to diving into the hardest parts of loss. So, welcome to Nothing Like a Good Book, Beth Ann.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Moving forward, looking back, it is essentially two stories in one, correct?
That's right. But I started it as a journal, a weekly journal of how I was feeling that week. And inevitably, when you're grieving over someone, you start thinking back over your experiences with that person and the love you shared and the life you had. So I just kind of naturally started as I was grieving, I started reflecting back on her life, and it just kind of evolved into this book where the first half of a chapter is about what I'm feeling that particular week, and then the second half details the story of how we met, and then goes on from there through our married life all the way to his death.
Yeah, each chapter begins in the present and then reveals some of the past, so that the full story of your lives together is formed, isn't it, by the end of the book?
That's correct. That's right.
Well, the reader, I think, sees you and Tom come together, but also lose each other at the same time, creating a unique juxtaposition that doesn't come with a linear plot. It's unusual. It's different. Would that be fair?
That would be fair. And it does. And other people having read it, they told me it does make sense. So that's good. That's good that you can jump back and forth in time. One thing I discovered in this whole process, we had, if you read the book, you'll find that we had a pretty tumultuous relationship. We deeply loved each other. We had many differences, and we're both kind of difficult people in our own ways, I guess. And that makes no difference in the grieving process. I mean, zero. In fact, I missed that. I missed that roller coaster ride that I had with Tom. And so it doesn't. And then Tom was ill for a while, and it doesn't really matter if someone is going to end up dying. That doesn't really make a difference, I found, in the grief that you feel.
Grief weighs me down like a black bear settling for hibernation on my shoulders. This is an excerpt from the book, folks. Experts say it takes at least a year to adjust to losing a spouse. Well, I picture a knapsack filled with 12 heavy stones flattening me to the ground. As each month passes, a stone will work its way out of the pack until eventually I can get to my knees, then stand, and then walk. At least that's the hope. Okay, touch on that if you would, Beth Ann.
Well, and that is exactly what I thought when I started this. I'm a lawyer. I'm a trial lawyer, so I prepare cases for trial and go to trial if that's what happens. I run marathons, so I prepare for running a marathon, and I know exactly how to do both of those things, the things I have to do. So when I heard, when I read and heard that it takes a year, I really was like, okay, I'm going to dive in here and I'm going to, get through this year. And this is a process. It's a 52-week process. And every week, I think things will get better. And I kind of pictured as I started this that, after, 1 month, one rock would fall out of the knapsack, and after another month, and that it would just be kind of a linear progress. And as time went on, I found out that is also not the case. You can move forward, and then you'll have a setback, and you'll kind of wonder what the heck, is going on, and then you take a step forward and take a step back. But I did find that by the end of the year, the burden wasn't as great. I felt like the stones hadn't fallen out of the knapsack, but that I knew how to carry them better,
right,
to where it did not weigh me down, and that I could find joy and in the remembrance and joy in my life. And it was okay to carry that grief with me,
right,
moving on into the future. So it didn't turn out like I thought it would, but it turned out to be okay.
Well, excuse the pun, but it turned out to be not that heavy after all.
Yeah.
In your own words, Beth Ann, you wrote this book because one of your goals is to provide hope to those who are grieving. And I mean, coping with loss is, it's not a straightforward experience. And ups and downs add a sense of realism to moving forward, looking back, with you sharing the lessons that you learned and how to find hope again, because everybody's different, but sad loss is everybody's the same, isn't it?
That's right. Everybody's is the same, and I think there's a lot of camaraderie and a lot of comfort in knowing that other people have felt just as bad as you do. And when if I could have found a how-to book on how to get through grief the best, I'm the kind of person that would have gone out and bought that book and read it religiously and followed all those things to be able, to get through grief the best way I could. Well, there was no such book that I could find that just kind of went through it for a kind of process-oriented person like me, that I wanted the game plan. Mm-hmm. And so I thought in writing this book, this would be kind of a game plan, and it is a game plan. It's not the game plan I thought it would be, but it does, I think, give comfort to people to know, okay, you can feel this miserable, and then you can climb out of that and find that life has joy, different moments of joy, and you can move forward and move beyond and have a good life with moments of joy without the person that you lost. And so you're just not stuck in this quagmire of, misery forever. Mm-hmm. It does get better. So that's why I took the approach of a week by week, because in my mind, I wanted a week by week map. And I'd say the map turned out to be kind of squiggly. It's kind of going all over the place, but we did end up getting to the destination we were hoping to get to, which is, the ability to have a full life.
Right.
And to move forward.
It's had some top critiques, I'll tell you that. Brad Butler, he was an author, or is an author, of a great book called A World Flight Over Russia and Without Redemption. He says nuggets of wisdom from the Bible, C.S. Lewis and Viktor Frankl, they pepper the story and show the reader Beth's desire to understand what is happening to her mind and soul during the grieving process. And you'll not come away empty-handed from reading this compelling life love story. That was rather nice, wasn't it? That was very nice.
If I could have hugged him, I would have, but I have not met him personally.
Well, you touched on, that you decided to write this book in a week-by-week format. Why did you decide to interweave the past and present rather than writing a linear story?
Well, it actually just came out that way. As I was writing the week by week, my thoughts inevitably returned to Tom, my husband. And so I just thought, well, I decided I'm going to reflect back from the very beginning of the relationship. And it just kind of fell into place that way naturally. It wasn't something I sat down and said, this is how I'm going to do it. I wasn't even planning to write about our relationship. I was just planning to keep this log of my weekly progress. And it ended up, it just naturally came of it, because you cannot help but reflect on the whole relationship. And so as you're in that process of grieving for someone. And so I just started at the beginning of our relationship, and it was very cathartic for me to write that, not only how I felt during, each week, but also, to reflect back on Tom and how we met, and the love I felt for him, and the challenges we faced. And it brought me some joy, just to have those memories and write about them. And I would urge anybody who's going through something like this to write both how you're feeling, and then reflect a bit on the relationship, and get the joy that you can out of that, and get those good memories, bring those good memories back.
Well, you sort of touched on everything. Here's an excerpt that says the funeral director never smiled. Even though I smiled at him several times, I couldn't help it. My preacher's daughter background conditioned me to be cordial even when my world is dark, and that practice has become a habit. I wondered if the guy had been taught at some seminar or other to keep a solemn expression on his face no matter what, or if experience had taught him that any sign of happiness could be taken as an insult. It's funny how you notice things like that when you're grieving early in the piece.
Yes, it is. And it was I think I was hyper aware of everything going on as far as the funeral director and what was happening. And I'm not a breakdown and cry usually in front of people person. I'm more of I can get this job done and then go home and fall apart kind of person. So I was paying attention to all those things, and it just struck me as so odd that the guy, could not get that guy to smile no matter what. But it turned out to be such a good guy. I think later in that chapter I had asked, Tom and I grew to love pugs, and Tom became as crazy about pugs as I was, and we had 2 pugs of our beloved pugs die. And I asked the guy if I could put the ashes of our dogs in the casket with Tom. And he looked at me so seriously and said, "We are forbidden from putting organic matter into a casket."
Yes. I laughed when I read that, I got to tell you.
Yeah. And then he just kind of said, and so I'm going to pretend that I did not hear that. So, so then I thought, okay, this guy does have, there is a person in there besides just the guy fulfilling this role. And
right.
So I ended up putting 2 dogs' ashes in with Tom.
Lovely. Okay. Well, you're listening to Nothing Like a Good Book with Mark Bishop, and my very special guest author is Beth Ann Blackwood. The book is called Moving Forward, Looking Back. And seriously, it will resonate with anyone of you who have experienced a devastating loss. Another excerpt says, I know things will get better. Millions of people for thousands of years have gone through the loss of a spouse. It's not like I'm Robinson Crusoe or anything. My story is not special. It's common, expected, inevitable. I started to equate this period of grieving with swimming. So I'm trying to learn to swim competently as part of my triathlon training, and I'm excruciatingly slow. Every time I ask my coach about getting faster, the reply is always, it's just time in the water. I think living with grief must follow the same logic. Nothing you can do can make it go faster, right? Or become any easier. You just have to live in it, adjust to it, and hopefully figure out how to navigate it in a way to come out whole on the other side. Very deep, very, very, very deep. You obviously loved him very, very much. Now, I want to ask you, how do you hope to inspire others by sharing such a personal story?
I hope to show them that it's manageable, that you'll get through this. And I hope to give them a little bit of a template for trying to get through it as best they can. And I do think it's important to write down what you're feeling. I think it's a good idea to write down the the good moments that you shared, or even the bad ones. And I think it's a tremendous idea to take up new things that you didn't do with with the loved one that you lost, and start creating a new life. Because I think that's one of the primary jobs you need to do if you want to move on with life and find joy and peace, is you've got to create a new life for yourself that doesn't include that loved one. So in my case, I needed to do things I didn't do with him. Find new stuff, and it filled two purposes. It occupied me, took a lot of my attention, so that helped a lot. And then secondly, it gave me something that I didn't have Tom, interwoven in it every time I did it. So one thing I did was, I bought a horse, and I didn't know anything about horses. And as I got this horse, I learned to groom the horse, and then I learned to ride the horse. And then, I'm still doing that. I've taken up dressage. So I'm trying to learn how to really ride a horse. But those were things that Tom and I we never had a horse. We never did.
What would he think now? What would he be thinking? Yeah, because he's looking at you. He's watching you. He's around. But what do you think he's thinking? Here you are riding a darn horse, for God's sake.
I think at first he would be kind of aghast, and then I think he would give me some grudging admiration for it. He had a daughter that he bought horses for, young, very, very expensive horses, and she was a very, very good hunter jumper. So I think his first thought would be, that's just, you're just pouring money into a hole. But in fact, I actually went to his grave one time, and I was telling him what I'd done. And I said, I bought a horse. And then I leaned closer just to see if I could hear him turn over in his grave. But I think now he'd be all in. I think he'd be all into it, now.
So Beth Ann, let me ask you this. Do you have any hesitations at all about sharing such a personal story? Why or why not?
Well, I held it for about a year, and I did hesitate about it because it is so deeply personal, and kind of stripped naked there, both about myself and what I was feeling, and about my relationship with Tom. I don't paint a perfect picture. But as I got to thinking about it, I'm old enough now, I know who I am. I'm comfortable with who I am. So why not? Why not share it? I'm not trying to impress anybody with being something I'm not. So I am what I am.
It's a personal big share with everybody to help others. I mean, obviously, writing down your feelings and experiences at such a time is really helpful for coping, with grief. Right?
Yes.
Were there any stories, events perhaps, that you wanted to add in, but you really couldn't fit them anywhere else?
Not really. I think I did kind of pretty much hit everything. All the kind of key points and highlights, I think I did hit it. So, and I think that's why I had to think about it a while before I let it out. But you did hit the nail on the head way more articulately than I did, which was the hope is to help people. And you can't get there if you're not going to be sincere and honest about what was going on. So you can't reach people if you're not willing to, be honest about the whole thing. So that's the hope here, is that people can read this and see that, this is going to get better, and I'm going to be okay.
John J. Kelly, famous critic of the Detroit Free Press, he has this to say: Beth Ann and Tom's relationship was not always easy, which makes their story relatable. Although they struggle, there is clearly love and admiration between them in the way that Beth Ann Blackwood portrays the relationship. And you can't help but root for them throughout the book. The reader can feel her emotions through her personal and illustrative way of writing. Moving forward, looking back is an illuminating and incredibly moving testament to the strength of human character. Just like she did when training for the half Ironman, Blackwood begins to understand that much of life is pushing through the pain and just keep going. It's the journey that matters most and not the destination. That's lovely from John Jay. There's another great one. This book, well, it's already, number one in its series on Amazon. So did you expect that in brief?
Not really, no. So I'm thrilled. I am thrilled.
Has your outlook on life changed after writing the book?
I think it has. I think it's changed from the experience of the actual experience, not so much from writing the book, but since they are kind of the same, it's depicting the experience. I think what I've really come to is that peace is attainable with your situation, which is very comforting. So you may not be happy or joyful, because those can be fleeting and elusive at times, but I think peace is always attainable. And that, if I can have peace, then I'm okay. And I think that's really the big lesson I kind of came away with is if I can get to be at peace with my situation and sit in it, basically, and be at peace with it, then I'm going to be fine.
There you go. Talking of horses, I read this part here where you said, look, I know nothing about horses and somehow never appreciated how dangerous they could be. A wiry man unloaded Merlin, obviously the name of your horse, and handed his lead to me. Besides being in a trailer for several hours, Merlin had been cooped up in a stable for almost 3 weeks due to torrential rain in Tennessee. Boy, was this poor Gigi bottled up, which I now know means he had scads of energy bubbling and underneath the surface just waiting for a chance to explode. He tolerated me for a few minutes and then bolted, kicking out his back hooves for good measure as he flew by, missing me by a centimetre. So it looks like he'll be a challenge. Good. Well, you've got that challenge, your mind is off the sadness, is it not?
Yes.
Merlin, how's Merlin today?
Merlin is terrific. He's a great personality. He is what's called a gypsy vanner. So he's a fairy tale looking horse. He's got a mane that touches almost the ground. He's got a really thick tail. He's got one blue eye and one brown eye. And I've taught, yeah, he's gorgeous. And I've taught him, he gives me a kiss. He gives me a hug. And, when he's tired, he'll rest his forehead on my chest. So we love each other. Now he doesn't really like being ridden very much, so we do have that problem. But he's a good guy. Yeah,
tall. How many hands? Is it a tall horse?
He's about 14.
Okay, that's nice.
14 and a half. Yeah. But yeah, they were the horses that gypsies bred to pull their vans. And they also acted as babysitters. So the breed is a gentle breed, hopefully, but they're a beautiful breed. They're one of the most beautiful horses you'll ever see. So,
sounds lovely.
So he's just a great horse, and he tolerates having his hair braided. We have spa day frequently. So yeah, he's a spoiled brat, basically, is what he is at this point.
So is this a horse interview, Mark, or is this to do with a book? Well, it's all part of it, and it's just part of it, but you're going to love it moving forward, looking back. And for anyone dealing with grief, okay, maybe you've got a family member, maybe just a dear friend, this book is perfect for you. Beth Ann and Tom's relationship, it is real, it's relatable, and captivating. There's a lot in it, naturally, that I can't cover in this interview, but it's published by Flights of Fancy Publishing House, LLC, March of 23, nice and new. It's roughly 177 pages, and it is available on Amazon. The Kindle is only $3.99. And if you'd like to buy the paperback as a gift for somebody, it's $14.95. So you're under $20. Moving forward, looking back. So how long does it take to go forward, to move forward from a loss of someone, looking of the love of your life, looking back, and sharing? I'm a great believer that they're still around, Beth Ann, to be honest, and
yeah.
I talk to my mum every day just about whatever, and I get answers. So listen to me. In your own words, Beth Ann, you wrote this book because your goal is to provide hope to those that are grieving, all right? Beautiful reason why. And it helped you to write down, for your own benefit, if there was one piece of advice that you could give to someone who is dealing with grief right now and listening to this podcast, what would it be? What would you give them?
I would tell them to write down their feeling. I got to tell them two things. One, write down your feelings, and two, get out and do something. Get out and do something.
Write down your feelings, and the good old adage and cliche of do something. Don't just sit around moping, right?
Right. You need to distract your mind. Get out there and do something, and before you know it, the distraction becomes something you're actually interested in.
Do you recommend things like, say you were married to somebody or had whatever the relationship was, but you used to cruise together as an example, and you loved cruising. Now, is it a case of he's gone or she's gone, it's terrible. Should I take a cruise?
Me personally, I probably would not. Because it just would be too, not in the first year anyway. I think it would be too difficult because that's what you did, that's what you loved doing, and all you would remember is, I'm on this cruise without this person.
Right.
And you would feel awkward. I think you'd feel lonely and awkward, and I think it would turn into not a very fun experience.
All right.
Now, 2 or 3 years down the road, yay, I think you could, but not in the first year.
Well, I take that on board. That's good advice. It's funny, though, in my own personal life, in the last 12 months, I've known couples. They were very close, very, very much in love, very happy. And they've passed on. One of the members has passed on. And so help me, Bob, the other partner's already met somebody.
Really?
I can't get over that jazz. I mean, I'm one of these old-fashioned thinkers of, that's it. Once my wife goes, I couldn't marry anybody else, and I don't want anybody else, blah, blah, blah. So everybody's different, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Now, I do have a question. Was that a man or a woman?
Well, it's interesting. They were both women.
Oh, really? Now, that's unusual.
Both women that passed, so the men.
Oh, it's the men. Well, no, see, that's not surprising at all to me.
Why is that?
Because I do think men are used to, especially after a certain age, and the age doesn't have to be that old, but after a certain age, especially if they're used to having a wife, it's very difficult for them to operate without one. And so they'll move quickly to find somebody to fill that void. And I do hope it works out for them. I really do. But I think they, instead of sitting in the grief, I think they run out, try to find a substitute pretty fast, and hopefully they find a good one.
But this is not Beth Ann's journey, is it?
No, it is definitely not my journey. No.
How many years were you married to Tom?
21. We were married for 21 years. And we knew each other for about 31 years. So
10 years before, huh?
Yeah, so he was a pivotal person in my life, very formative, both professionally and personally. He was a trial lawyer, and he hired me as an associate at his firm. And so he was pivotal pretty much in every aspect of my personal and professional life. So it was a huge loss all the way around for me. But I admired him so much, both professionally and personally. He was a very unusual, remarkable man.
It's a lovely story, and what a way that you met, and early days in your career, and it's a lot to read in it. You'll love the book, folks. It's worth it. It's a beautiful book. Moving Forward, Looking Back, and it's by Beth Ann Blackwood. Do you plan any more books as a matter of interest?
Well, I may. As it turns out, the last sentence of the book is something like, who knows what life may hold for me. It's kind of a hopeful, yay kind of thing. Well, about 4 months after that, I got diagnosed with cancer last year. And so I went through chemotherapy and surgery and et cetera, and got released in December. And now I'm back all good, cancer-free, and getting my fitness back and all that stuff. So I've contemplated, should I write a book about that? I don't know. They might think I'm Job. How many things could happen to this woman?
There you go. No, good on you. Well done. Congrats on that. It can be beaten, and you can get well. There's no such thing as can't. And
That's right.
That's wonderful. Life, Love, and Loss, 1 year of coping with grief. You know, this book, folks, I think I told you, but if you came on sort of halfway through or something, it's already a top 10 Amazon bestseller. Okay, look in the criteria of death, grief, and spirituality. Beautiful. Moving forward, looking back with Beth Ann Blackwood, who was my special guest on this particular episode of Nothing Like a Good Book. And it's been a pleasure, Beth Ann.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.